Hi, this is Matthew. Just going to talk briefly about the kinds of action figures I collected as a kid. It's going to be probably pretty obvious to some people who are watching this, but um, I was a big fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I had a lot of theirs. All the main people and some minor people in there. So I had a lot of Star Trek people and Star Wars people, including vehicles for both. We had, and all original Thrift Voyager had some different figures of each of those. Turtles, we even had the Turtles. We even had the sewer play set. Never did get the Technodrome. That was a little bit more than. It was kind of pricey, but then we were able to open one up, and there wasn't much there, so I didn't ever want that one. It wasn't as neat as the sewer play set was. Of course, I also had Star Wars stuff as well as various vehicles there. Lots of different people. This was all in the 90s, so I'm not sure what the sets were like later and who they had, but there was various people in that. Also, we had a few He-Man things as a kid, but then there was a garage sale my dad found near us. They were selling a whole bunch of it, and he came home with it. I don't know, no idea what that cost. It was really cool because it was all in a big box. Had the He-Man and the Skeletor castles, so that was neat, and various hero and villain figures were included. So our brother Mike's collection jumped because of that. That was a shared one. Usually because we were twins, we had like the same of each character. But I had some different ones than he did, and vice versa. But we had mostly a lot of the same types of characters. I had some different ones than he did. I had some different ones sometimes. I always got you hear good and bad people. I always got both. Kind of depended on what it was. So yeah, but I did have a pretty good collection of those. I had some other miscellaneous things here and there that I collected, but that was the main ones I collected, at least. Yeah. He had people from the show Sequest. I didn't have any of those. Got to play with him a little bit. I had some. I also had ones from. It was a very short-lived series. I think it was called Ultra Force. It was a cartoon. I'd like to find it again. It was a comic, apparently. But we had our EPN that had Voyager on it at the time. Was at a Branson, and they would show, of course, cartoons syndicated. And that was one they had that we didn't have here. They're only like 40-some minutes away, technically. But we didn't have that show. They had several shows like that we didn't have. They had a lot of random shows that they had syndicated at that point. Because UPN wasn't much of the schedule. It was only at night. And so you had to fill in with other things. And they had a lot of... even like Disney Afternoon that like only WGN had. We never had it locally except on that. And that was much later. When I was watching it, we didn't have it. WGN did. We had some of the programming from it. We did not have the block. And I did have some toys from that, but they were like out of a cereal box. They were little tiny things. They weren't very big. They had like, I think they had Tailspin, they had Darkwing Duck, they had Goof Troop. I don't know if they had any DuckTales figures, but I already had Launchpad from Darkwing Duck. I think it's all the ones they had, but those took forever to arrive. There were several boxes. Those were kind of neat little figures. You could get, I forget what cereal box giveaway that was, but you could get all of them. I guess you could pick, but we got all of them. Maybe you could get out of cereal boxes. We even got some Sega Genesis cartridge or two out of a cereal box. I got a couple of albums out of a cereal box, classic rock and oldies, and just weird things I would collect. That was more high school, but yeah, I used to be able to get different things out of cereal boxes like that you could mail away for. And it was only in that. Yeah, like there was a Star. I do have a Star Wars figure that way. It was Obi-Wan Kenobi as his kind of spirit form, like in the Force. I got mine from the back of the Lay's chip bag, I believe. Even more on that, I usually would go find Nathan P. Butler and look, or just search for the Star Wars, for the Star Wars home video library. He has all kinds of stuff like that, including that figure. Is one of the things he reviewed at one point. He does a brief video on that, so and there probably are other things like that, but various things from Happy Meals, Muppet Babies from the Happy Meals. There were several of those. A lot of the California raisins from Hardee's, they were bigger. They had bendable arms and legs. Those guys were cool. They were kind of fuzzy. I had like one, and then they were able to get a whole bunch at one point, and so we got a bunch of those. And then there's interesting Looney Tunes. I think they were McDonald's, where you had like I think Bugs Bunny was like Superman, Dabby Duck was like Batman. I forget some of the other ones where we had several of those as well. Again, you got the initial ones, and then later on, like, somehow we were to get a whole bunch at one time. I don't know how that was all done, but it was parent magic as far as I was concerned. I didn't have money. But yeah, lots of different things like that that I had little collections of. Figure-wise, they were smaller figures sometimes, but some bigger. A bigger Captain Picard I found at Six Flags. He even had a stand. It was kind of cool. His arms moved. I think it's about all that moved on him. I also found a Foghorn Leghorn at Six Flags as well. They were both in St. Louis. Little things like that you'd find here and there. You'd see something. I only have one Babylon 5. I have London Malari. Not even Las Vegas of all things. My brother got Captain Sheridan. There were some other figures, but they were very expensive, and not having my own money. But yeah, there's just random things you'd find places. Just be looking around and what the heck? They have this? So you'd find little random things like that every once in a while. Yeah, the Babylon 5 figure, they didn't have any weapon. They were just like figures. They didn't have any like stuff with them. Most action figures had weapons, or Star Trek had little pads and phasers and whatever. Star Wars, obviously, you had lightsabers or blasters or whatever you might have, but they were always very tiny. They were always getting lost. Yeah, in fact, I remember I got Casey Jones for the Turtles, and he, beat up people with sports equipment. A little sports bag with sports equipment you put inside of it. And of course, wouldn't you know it, you know how cars are with seat belts and weird openings where things can get lost in. Barely had it open an hour, had it in the car, was messing with it, and lost one of the things down the seat. Never found it again. I don't remember which equipment it was. I was so irritated. Never could get it back. I had lots of fun stuff like that as a kid. I don't know what they have for figures these days. Let me know what kind of things are being collected by kids like that are kind of action figure-y, and what kind of vehicles are around. I had a couple of Transformers, not a ton of those. I only had like one. I had a couple of Voltron things. Got one of the Lions later. Got the whole Voltron. I had the Red Lion, I think. Yeah. I think Brett had the Blue Lion. I can't remember. They were little tiny things that kind of moved a little bit. You could stick a guy inside the cockpit. I found the Voltron itself later. I guess you could stick somebody in that, but I would just stick random people in it. We didn't have the person. I had some earlier Star Wars. We had the Ewok Treehouse from the early Star Wars. I had a a Han Solo from that. I did have a couple of Batman villain, Batman, and I think I had Penguin and Catwoman and Riddler. From that, I did have a Superman. I got it very young. I always liked him. He had bendable arms and stuff. He had a cape, and I liked him a lot. I carried him around a lot of places. Stuff like that. Just all kinds of randomness. And various little. I think we found the Flash at a garage sale. I think. Just random stuff like that. Just every once in a while you'd find something. And you could get it if you were lucky. Things and some stuff I got with my grandfather. He used to go to garage sales. We would at least look around. I saw the Hoth base from Star Wars, the 80s version. There. Didn't buy it, of course. I would have gotten the job with Hut they had, but he had a missing arm, which of course was not there. So I'm like, it's missing an arm. No, I didn't buy that one. Probably should have. It moved. I think it kind of moved a little bit, like the tail moved and stuff. I did have a later one. He had all of his appendages. They didn't detach. These you could take them off for some reason. So he's missing an arm. There was clearly a spot where the arm was supposed to go. I'm like, no. No thanks. If I'm gonna like to buy it in, I know it's a garage sale, but it's like he should have all of his arms, Typically didn't have any weaponry, but he didn't have an arm. He was missing an arm. Like you could clearly have, had it been available, could have been put back in. But they probably didn't have it anymore. But they just sold it as it was. But yeah, amazing. Garage sales were fun because you could find all kinds of stuff like that if you were lucky. And you don't always have. Having money as a kid and whatever, but yeah, you'd find cool things. I did have another Voltron. It was metal. It had moving arms, and the head moved, and so I did have that one. He had some wings in the back that would unfold just like the bigger one. You could stick a figure in. But this guy was metal. I forgot about him. Yeah, I got him as a I think Christmas one year or something. Just little things like all kinds of stuff like that I had. So he was nothing on him opened. I did see the Transformers Optimus Prime. I saw him one time at someone's house. I could never get him to change out of the truck to become the actual robot. I tried. I don't know how many times I'd go over that house, get in that chest that they had, and try to make him a robot again. I never could get him to transform quite right. I don't know what it was. I never could get all the pieces to work. I would like to have seen him as a robot. Just I didn't know what he looked like. He was just the truck. I couldn't get him to change out of the truck. Oh well. Yeah, all kinds. You see other people's houses. Saw Big Vader and C-3PO at a friend's house. He had those. They were, as a kid, ginormous. I loved those things. He had lots. He even had a Yoda puppet thing, and it's so cool. You had stuff. You go to someone's house, they'd have other stuff you could look at. Like you probably never would find, but you could look at it and play with it maybe for a little bit, give it back. So, I do some of that too, but yeah, I liked collecting action figures as a kid of various types. What did you collect? Write in the comments. So, what kind of stuff did you get as a kid or as a parent? What do your kids, do they collect toys like that, or is it all just watching stuff online? Or what do people do now? I don't even know. Not to mention all the talking educational toys I would see as a kid. I think some of those are still around, but I know it's very different now, and I guess some of them would have AI and stuff in them and have internet connectivity, which didn't exist when I was growing up in that kind of way. Yeah. What did you collect? What do your kids collect if you have kids? Or what kind of stuff is out there? Usually I'm looking for someone's birthday. As a kid, we're looking for specific stuff, so I don't even really know what's out there. sometimes I don't always get to see everything, and I know it's not the same as it was when I was growing up. So, yeah, what are you or your kids? If you have kids, what are they collecting? What did you collect? I also like cars, but it's not really an action figure. I used to like cars, but I used to like spinning the wheels on the cars. So, things like that. I had other little cars and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah. Let me know your thoughts about your toy collecting as a kid. And again, like, what do your kids? Do they collect toys? Do they like stuff? What do they like? What's out there now? I don't really know sometimes. But I think that'll do it for this one. I will see you guys in another video.